Did you guys know you can find epic versions of any song? It's incredible. Isn't YouTube magical? Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and comrades all, and welcome to this, whatever this is. It's me in the dark where it's too warm, drinking a cider. And here's the thing. I have a legendarily, even Herculean, resistance to alcohol. But this is genuinely the first drop of booze I've had this year. So, Lord knows what may well happen. I have reverted to my virginal state. Oh, there it is. Hang on. Long-time viewers may be interested to know that in the time between the last one of these little broadcasts and now, I have found God. Indeed, I have been an avowed atheist for 13 years, but now I put all of my faith and hope in Mr. Elephant. This is because Mr. Elephant kindly, joyously, and without hope of reward for himself, ventures into the belly of the beast in the sure and certain hope that I may get some sleep before daybreak. So if things get crazy, which they may very well do, I will be invoking Mr. Elephant. It's a little bit shocking watching your spirit animal being chewed upon by an amber-eyed tripod monster, but hey, what are you going to do? It's 2020 after all. So, what in the name of God fuck is going on here? We have a chat. We have things happening. Of a kind. I have 2 people watching, which is 3 more than I'm used to. This is an astonishingly provocative pose I have here. The hinge of my laptop is kaput, so I'm sort of crouching down. But yeah, you know what? If I'm going to show a bit of chest, I'll show a bit of chest. What of it? Aphrodite is here, my goodness, my darling, my angel. Thank you so much. Okay is here. Vile fiend and temptress. Ginny is here, popping every bit. Oh, thank you very much for the happy birthday. The second happy birthday, no less. Dal is here, shouting cake. But like Marie Antoinette, I'm afraid there will be no cake. There is only Bulmers. Well, you people have been busy while I've been not being here. Ouija boards. There is a stream of Ouija boards going on. That's going to be a short stream. And they invented in the 1920s by Mattel or something, because it's just the French and German words for yes. Twitch. Oh, things are happening. We are in real time now. I have caught up. Says I have no resistance, but for whatever reason, my buzz wanes very quickly. So yeah, I have this ability where I get drunk reasonably quickly, but I stay at the same level of drunkenness for a long time. It takes a good couple of hours and closing on a dozen pints for me to be pissed, but we may yet see. It has been a while. Charlotte Armstrong, thank you so much. It's an absolute delight to have you here. What do you have for me, Temptress? Not only can you, I will be deeply, deeply offended if you don't. I really hope I don't get copyright flagged for that opening. I mean, it didn't have anything about Creative Commons or anything in the description. Adega, an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. I now have 5 people watching me. Ye gods. Oh, it's like high school PE all over again. Much lol, all lol. Dal, my Andromedan ambassador, thank you ever so much. I am drinking Bulmers, Hereford's finest. It's not as sweet as Magnus, but I mean, if you want decent cider, you got to go to the West Country, ain't you? You got to go down here. You got to go down to Zedland. You got to go Hereford. You got to go Somerset. That kind of place. What do you have here? Bacon works best on birthdays. I'll tell you what else works best on birthdays, like the 20-odd ounces of sirloin I've got out there for my dinner tomorrow that I do not have to share with anybody. I will take the moniker and I will run with it. Well, no, I don't run with them on fire, but I will amble casually and with a sense of pseudo-confidence with the moniker. Excuse me. Yes, it is true. I have made it around the sun again, and you know what that means, boys and girls. It means that the pale angel of death is extending his arms and crouching down like an expectant and happy parent at the end of the school path. And I'm trotting away nimbly towards them, waving the finger painting I did for them in however many years I have left on this earth. You can't hear me, but I'm singing happy birthday, my baby. Well, that is true, I can't hear you, but I am also an extraordinarily empathetic and imaginative individual, so now it is rooted deeply, deeply in my brain. And, well, I'd say it would keep me warm on these cold nights, but it's incredibly hot here. And just with that, it got a damn sight hotter. Go, God, ye gods, ye magnificent curls! My darling, my angel, my poor, long-suffering best friend, how the hell are you? Isn't it past your bedtime? I'm so thrilled that you're here with me, Chris. What is up, birthday boys and friends? Oh, birthday boy and friends. I thought you had a new and unique opening. I get drunk slowly, lasts for a short time, and I have had. Yeah, this seems to be a pattern developing here. It's a familial thing. Chris is awake. Light the fucking beacons. Chris, you are a darling. You deserve significantly better than me. You really do. I know. Actually, I think the times you are up this late is usually because I'm causing you to be. So it's nice that at least some part of the tradition is carrying on. But Chris has been a veteran of a fair few of my birthday nights out in all their splendor and disappointment. So we can actually attest to some of the nonsense that usually goes on. The game has taken different names and different times, whether. But it basically amounts to collect a foreigner or collect a tourist. Where because, Liverpool is the city people go to from other countries when they realize just how ridiculously expensive London is. So on any halfway decent night out, you can expect to collect your own United Nations. But I have never in any of those pub crawls collected in Australia. We've covered the coasts of the United States. We've tidied up the Anglosphere, except for Australia. It's quite remarkable. And it was a damn fine to. And you know what else I still have? I have the Froggy Winter Courting that you got me, and the note that you put on the inside of it is still there. because Bren was having names. You seem a bit pissed already. Because Chris is here and he actually knows me. My sister was looking at some of the children's fiction I have for her own little ones, and I wouldn't hand over the Froggy Went a Courting, and she thought it was because of sentimental value, which it sort of was, but mainly because I refused to remove the incredibly inappropriate note that is sellotaped to me inside. Oh, I missed one of Charlotte's comments. I do apologize. And I've just highlighted Dal's. Or have I? No, here it is. What say ye? I'm choosing my morning cup of tea to you. Charlotte, what part of the world are you in? Is it possible that after that meandering I've just said, that I have finally laid my hands upon an Australian? I have. I got my Australian. Oh, I can die now. That's it. I've fulfilled my function. I would dearly love to go to Australia, but it's the heat I cannot take. So you can keep the jolly swagmen camped by the billabongs. You can keep your coolabah trees. As much as I'd love to see them, it is just too damn hot for me. I'm an Arctic mammal. Literally cannot remember the note I put in there. If I was absolutely certain that Vinny wouldn't jump up and like smash this computer to pieces, I'd go upstairs and get it. But I think the punchline of it was masturbating furiously. At least I think it was that one. My memory really is not what I thought was. Ooh, it's all happening here. I got one. Yeah, don't. I'm perfect for secrets. You can tell me exactly whatever the hell you want, and chances are I will forget it. I can't imagine why. I used to use this stuff to drown my sorrows, but then my demons taught them how to swim. That was really good to say. Oh, what would I give for some rain? I would dearly, dearly love some rain. Hey, fuck the Guinness World Records. This is Pokemon to me. This is I've I've caught them all at last. No, does that mean you've remembered? Excuse me. I have a little something. It may take me with it, but we will see. Yeah, I genuinely did. I don't set reminders for my own videos. It's really nice that you're all here, I must say, because I've been made aware that there's a massive stream thing going on elsewhere. But doing these, I actually like. Dow is going to tell me off now because I'm supposed to be building my platform and whatever. But I sort of like doing my streams when the big ones are going on because it reminds me vaguely of that one time I performed at the Edinburgh Fringe. And you've got all these massive shows going on. You've got all the big theatres booked, but then you have the little fringe venues that only a small collection go to. And I like that. I like setting up the stall. Well, it always sounded like an STD, if you mean Pokemon. It always does. And now what I desperately want is for somebody to design pseudo Pokemon-like creatures that are based on STDs. Like gonorrhea or the clap. Can you imagine what the clap's main move would be? Clap uses vaginal itching. It's super effective. It's good stuff. Sorry, I do apologize. That was terribly vulgar. And usually I'm smoothly vulgar. I'm a classy asshole. A classhole. A suavage. That's what I've taken to calling myself. Suavage. So I'm reclined like this, and it is comfortable, but I really genuinely do not think I'm going to get up. Not too shy. Oh, hang on. Too shy to marathon. Those chats move too fast. They do. It's the chats on those big streams, what the inside of my head looks like at any given moment. Oh God, we've got a lot. What's going on? I'm too timing with a write-a-thon, but I wasn't actually planning to write the current stream, and the chat is too busy, so I figured they won't miss me. What a delight it is to be the bit on the side. Again. But you already did that in your own book. You forgot your own camels. Oh, yes, I remember. And I've just remembered something else as well that I will come to in a moment. Oh, I do love when like you all start talking to each other. But if I have achieved one thing in my life, if when I die and I arrive at the final judgment, after I've stopped screaming and very quickly reconsidering some long-held views, if they ask me to justify my existence on the planet Earth, it will be that I brought Chris into all of your lives. It is something that the planet needed desperately in these trying times. I sometimes wonder what the hell would have happened if I hadn't have sat down at that table in the Pilgrim that day. I love you very dearly. It's important that you know that. I kind of like Absolute Chaos, like that one stream that had like 8 people on it at once. Yeah, I'm an agent of chaos. Class hole, that is me. Come to mind later of Europe. Streams. I was considering sleeping through the next stream, but then decided to get up and make tea. That is the Anglosphere for you. The only ones who, although I am staggered to discover the amount of Americans that are into the whole tea thing. And I'm staggered because wasn't that where the whole problem started? If y'all wanted to start drinking tea, maybe you shouldn't have thrown it all in the fucking harbour. You know what I'm saying? Just a thought. And incidentally, it's scone, not scone. Just while we're at it. Look, this is not for me. Oh, me. Chris is great. I've been a terrible friend all these years, but he is great. So it's important that I declare my love in a public forum so it's known. Right. This stuff is dangerously smooth. It's deceptively smooth. And it sort of waits for you. It loiters just around the corner in dark alleyways, waiting to kick you across the head. Finn Hogan, I do tea and coffee equally. Yes, you do. You do indeed. Chaos follows me everywhere, no matter the size of the chat. But chaos follows you, chaos leads you. There is only this momentary glimmer of order in the midst of it all. So I wouldn't worry about it all that much. Just lie back and embrace absurdism. One must presume Sisyphus to be happy. Things are happening. Now that is a reference, but I don't want to share it with them. That is our thing, and Cube's thing as well. He was there as well. Okay, my darling, my love, light of my life. If you are using the phrase little sachet to refer to a tea bag, I may single-handedly restage the War of 1812 just to settle this. Yeah, I'm a big fan. The world started to make a hell of a lot more sense once I embraced absurdism as a philosophy. It just makes so much more sense. See, I've seen a lot of railing against what they call grimdark as a genre, and sure enough, yeah, there's an awful lot of it that goes completely overboard. There's an awful lot of edgelords out there. Okay, no, you didn't. You didn't. The War of 1812 ended with an armistice, and hell, no reputable historian would say the United States won that war. The only major battle you won was in New Orleans after the war was over. But the point is that I have completely forgotten what the hell I was saying. That was the point. Oh, Dal, thank you. You do not know what that means to me, but thank you, because it's brand recognition. So I'm an emotionless, unsympathetic, borderline psychopath. So I can't accurately acknowledge the sentiment, but I can feel it, and it hurts. What the hell was I talking about? Yeah, grimdark, populated by an awful lot of edgelords. Have I gone black and white? Have I just turned monochrome on this bloody thing? Finally, marvelous. Edgelords, grimdark, blah 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 blah. But the response to it was this sort of My Little Pony, friendship is magic nonsense. So I've been dedicating the last few years of my what I hilariously refer to as my writing career in the cultivation of what I call grimdark, which is on the premise that the universe is chaotic, brutal, cold, uncaring, and everything is fucking awful. And sometimes that's really, really funny. You know, there is joy to be found in the chaos. Let's make this the most wholesome stream. Yeah, nobody would believe it. Can you imagine? Because it is coming to my attention very slowly that I have something kind of like a reputation in the fringes of this of this little community, and nobody would believe that this was the most wholesome chat going. The tea shade, yeah. We ever come to con? Well, the last one I'll believe, but actually, historically speaking, and I apologize, Chris, because you've had to suffer this before in the Fantastic World seminars. The War of 1812 is actually my favorite war in history because it is completely batshit. Because it was, if it was a case of Twitter had existed, it wouldn't have happened at all. The Royal Navy impressing American sailors. Fucking hell, someone's getting arrested tonight into the Royal Navy to fight in the Napoleonic Wars. Because from the Royal Navy's point of view, first of all, you're not actually your own country, so we're having you back. But also because there had been an awful lot of British servicemen who had deserted and run to the States, so they were sort of arresting people naturally. Oh God, help me! Was it James Madison or James Monroe? I think it was James Madison who was the president at the time, but I could be wrong. Was very, very upset about this. And he took the very, very brave and incredible decision to declare war on the British Empire. Nowadays, actually, it's a perfect illustration because the tables have turned completely. It's rather like the United Kingdom declaring war on the United States today. The Royal Navy at the time was something in excess of 10,500 vessels. The US Navy was 12. But the really hilarious thing was that 2 weeks before the declaration of war arrived at Parliament, Parliament had already repealed the impressment program because they said, listen, this could start a war. We'd better stop. So it's if instant messaging had existed or a modern diplomatic form had been around, it wouldn't have happened at all. I got lost. My God, it did, didn't it? I am in control of my destiny. Magnificent. James Madison is because Dolly Madison saved the portrait of George Washington from the White House when it was burnt down. But yeah, it's a bit of a cheek, and I admire the cheek. I really do. Saying that somehow fighting and invading and occupying all the way from the Canadian border to Louisiana and burning the capital makes it a victory for the US. But this is not what we're here for. Well, then again, maybe it's my birthday. Maybe it's my birthday. It is my birthday. Maybe I can talk about whatever the hell I like. You know, I would give my left arm to have MSN Messenger back. It would be so much better than Facebook. I would swap all of modern social media just to get MSN Messenger back. When you're a young teen and you're doing that thing of logging in and logging out so that your crush notices that you're online. I'm flickering between color and monochrome. It's nice to know that my webcam has caught up with my bipolar. But yes, here I sit, and it's not a... You're new here, okay, so I'll say this once. Don't flirt with me. Yes, here I said, and it's not a fluke of a camera. This is genuinely how grey I am. 28 times around the sun. A good couple of light years away from where I started in the universe. Well, certainly my current incarnation is 28 years old. This is my 7th. For those of you who are keeping score at home. But yeah, and now I have to think about what I'm going to do next. Because as I speak, my book, as I have told some of you, if not most of you who are gathered here at present, will know is the greatest book you will never read, is currently circulating the offices of a fair subsection of literary agents who would even look at something like this in the United Kingdom. So what I was thinking, and Dal knows about this, if people are amenable, and because people have seemed to like me doing this sort of thing in the past, that I would read the submitted section. I would read on this and give a little preview of my little baby on here. Just the section that is with the agents, you see. So that depends on if people want to hear me drivel and drone through a book that probably isn't up to snuff. But what can I say? I'm staying down the wrong end of 20. I'm having a bit of a drink. I'm feeling a bit maudlin. I can do what I like. It's my stream, and I can die if I want to. But in the that was a significantly swifter response than I was expecting. Shit. I wasn't actually expecting that. Yeah, fuck it, why not? Because you see, this is so cozy. You see, this isn't provocative. This is cozy. Actually, it's funny you say that, Chris, because you were only asking me earlier how. Because actually, there's a point. Chris was Yes, no, he was actually my first beta reader on this in its original form. Originally, it was a series of connected shorts, and an agent told me that was too complicated for people. Get your head around that. So I turned it into a mosaic novel, and this would actually be the first time he's heard it. So yeah, fuck it, why not? I haven't done one of these in a while. So, for those of you who do not know, this is called the Dead Meat Sextet. So, if you're sitting comfortably, are you sitting comfortably? Are you all still there? Or will I be talking to myself again and the nice men in their bright white coats will come and take me away? Haha. Okie dokie. This is the Dead Meat Sextet. This is the first 3 chapters that I sent to the agents. They're only short, but instead of saying chapter 1, 2, and 3, I'll just carry on because they make up for this part. Let me readjust myself in every way that a man may be readjusted. Where is it? Where is it? What's it got in its pockets? A bit of Gollum for you while I find my file. Okay. We did page. Part 1. Aperitif. You know who they are, even if you don't know that you know. They're the someone. Mark the capitalization, sunshine. It's no accident. Let that big, pointed capital T catch in your throat when you speak of them. They are the ultimate, the total, the elemental someone. Someone's fucking with me, you'll say, and you'll be right. Someone is. Someone's having a laugh at my expense, you'll whine, and you'll never genuinely appreciate how true your whinging is. Phew, says Hugh. I'm glad no one saw that. And you've hit the nail on the goddamn head, me old mate. No one saw what you did. Because someone saw. Are you confused? Good. You don't deserve clarity. Pissing in the wind. That's what trying to explain things to you people is like. But times are changing, even back here. You're not playing the game right, insofar as that's even possible. Insofar that possible's even, to hell with it. I suspect you're starting to bore them. But what do I know? Not like they tell me what they're up to. It's been determined you should be allowed a little glimpse while you're still meat and bone and opinions, just a tiny sliver of a shifty peek behind the veil, so to speak, and see how the other half live, so to speak. Maybe then you'll get your bleeding act together. So, to reiterate, you know who they are. They're the someone. Around here, we call them the management. They want you to see. Hello? Hello? Is there anybody there? I need help. This is part of the game. Don't let them make you a part of the game. I'm trying to... Look, I know someone's there. I can feel it. Can you hear me? Nothing is what it seems. It's important to remember that. So I'm obliged to play translator and frame our domain in such a way that your porridge little brain can comprehend. Nobody said it had to be comfortable. Conjure before your inner eye the great curtain, a shimmering, translucent veil of uncountable silver tears bisecting here from there, depending on what side you're standing on. Up and up forever, and down for longer, and stretching in directions you're not evolved enough to fathom, but will say you see as side to side. Get up close to it. Go on. Trudge towards it and feel the grainy covering of the ground slide and crunch, horrible in the cloying quiet beneath your feet. What is the grainy substance you're tramping through? Don't worry about it. Why, yes, it does appear to have the same colour and consistency of ground-up bone. Aren't you a sharp one? Shut up about the floor. It's not really a floor anyway, but that's by the by. Look at the bloody curtain. What do you see? A folded and flickering cascade of light and shadow, as if infinite reels of celluloid have been laid across each other and cut together, and an omnipotent projector lights them all until a phantasmal tide of stuttering images swells and tumbles before you, as stark and substantial as dust motes teeming past a window. The window. Forever. That light comes from somewhere. Cast the dancing shadows against cosmic detritus. Do you know what you're looking at? Of course you don't. These fleeting snatches of silver and ivory faces and worlds like ghosts howling silently through the glittering membrane, don't worry about it. You people never get to see your reality from the outside. What an absolute bloody mind-bending nightmare it is. Can't expect a fish to recognize its river if you tear it from the deep and hold it high above the surface, its dumb mouth opening and closing, and its dumb staring eyes surveying the running water, the waters that run alongside it, the streams and tributaries that pulse between them and make all water one water. Hey, kind of like you right now, eh? Mad, ain't it? Don't worry, you'll be fine. Fish thrive out of water. Oh, you reckon you've got a handle on the curtain, do you? A lifetime of soaking your skull spots in madcap fiction's got you nice and prepped with the permeable fabric of eternity, has it? All right, smartass. Take a closer look. That's it, grasshopper. Take a good, long look. Let that silver and white light envelop you. Let your mind drift away into the elsewhere tides and meanwhile ripples. Do you notice yet? It's not a curtain. Don't break your nose. All right, I know you can hear me, but I appreciate you probably can't talk right now. I'll be plain. Level with you, as you'd say. I'm not supposed to be here. I followed you in. I think you'd say I piggybacked. Anyway, the stagehands are passive-aggressive little shits, but they can't actually harm you. I think. Management's attendance in perpetuity. They're never allowed to play, and they hate the living for it. They won't let me play either. I don't even know I exist, but with your help, I'll be able to... Oh, look out. Oh dear, my corporeal chum, did that hurt? Oh, but I hope it did. I'll get a full description of it from you later. I'm keeping a scrapbook, you see. I really do like geometry and dimensions, that stuff you lot are hooked on. How easily a curtain becomes a carpet, a wall becomes a floor. I was told to mock up some gravity for your acclimatization. The exact distance and the drop was my little touch. Lying with your dumb, guppy face on the floor of a multiverse. Get up already, you're here. You stand in the center of a grey stone amphitheater, so old the moss that grew in its cracks has blackened and creepers have withered to brittle, flaking vines. Veins. Behold the hieroglyphics, worn near smooth by age, carved into it. You'll never understand their antique meaning, don't even bother. Crane your neck all you like, you'll never see the top. The tears go on forever. I suppose even you can sense it. That there's something lurking in the depths of the blackness above. That there's someone watching. Oh, it's a full house tonight. Always is when the sextet plays. Well, don't be shy, kiddo. Take a bow if you like. This is your audience. Every seat in the amphitheater is occupied by what looks to be a human skeleton of a distinctly Harryhausen type. Their empty sockets staring, their still bones varnished and waxed with a look of old chess pieces to them. Their shadows are strange, you think, lit as they are from beneath by the monochrome kaleidoscope you're walking on. Does the silence bother you? Does the quiet tug at your eardrums? Hear this, then. the soft clattering mounting and mounting until an angular waterfall floods down from those endless tears. That's the sound of countless skeletons slowly playing with a fistful of coins in their fleshless hands. We love a betting crowd here. I guess this isn't what you thought the other side was like, eh? If you thought about it at all, I bet you never reckoned all human life amounted to nothing more than a nice little flutter. Who makes it? Who doesn't? Who fudges the numbers? Who evens the odds? Who puts on the best show? I've got to get in there before he starts. Who crosses the finishing line? Who gets tens? They're being credulous, Cupcake. You people gamble on blinkered dumb animals. Why shouldn't we? Now, don't you go getting all uppity about this. That's above your pay grade. You're here to watch, not to ask questions. If you really feel the need to bash your two neurons together and question something, ask yourself the only question that should ever matter to dead meat folk like you. What kind of show will you put on when those countless hollow sockets are turned on your mortal span? Wonder if you'll be worth the price of admission. I don't think you're worth the price of a popcorn, but whoever cared what I think? Don't worry about it. Skeletons aren't looking at you, and you shouldn't be looking at them. Over there. Those creatures shambling from out the shadows, crooked and hunched and slavering, their skins of slack grey mollusk leather, and orange eyes in all the wrong places, and all the wrong amounts. Do you see them? Of course you do. And now you'll never not see them. Each with a crook in their clawed, two-thumbed hands, the copper chains around their wrists dragging behind them. These are the stage hands. These are my kin. Do you mean to say you didn't care to imagine just what I looked like before now? Did you suppose I was just a voice floating in your head? That I even had a name? Hell's bells, Cupcake, this is why nobody likes you. You're so gnawingly self-centered. In a shuffling and clanking arc, the stagehands stared up the light with their crooks, each in their turn summoning up from out the flickering the set pieces of tonight's sextet. All of them have been so bleeding studious and dripping with arse-licking fastidiousness, just in the hope that the black hole chasm above where management resides will look, well, not kindly, but look upon them at all, ever, just once. They'll stare up lives into a dancing miasma, where the only judges are mood and taste. They've all got their pet projects, all except, do you see, poor and much maligned Master Marengo, who doesn't get to play the sextet tonight. Do you know why? Because the luckless gobshite is showing your sorry excuse for an arse around the netherworld. There. You didn't ask, so I just told you. You don't need to make a big deal about it. I'll do it enough for both of us. Here they come, rising from out the floor. Not that it's really a floor. Like the phantoms of ghost ships into the amphitheatre. Whole slabs of worlds and their translucent crew. See the old man in the dead of night, of whom Master Nickel has made a long-time endeavour, sitting crooked on the naked stairs and watching through drooped and sorrow-bound eyes the frantic shadows beneath his front door. See the delinquent in the toilets of a nightclub, kneeling down and picking up an abandoned wallet from the slick tiles. Will you get a load of that conspiratorial look he wears as he glances round for the owner? He slides the wallet into his own pocket and steps up to the urinal. I can see why Master Slate was so eager to present this one, even if, for my 2 pence, he's just showing off with how far he can bend the rules to get at it. He's bending them pretty far, I can tell you, getting the mistress of the robes involved. Never did tell the poor girl. We never do. Ah, but now you see the aged grande dame, feverish in bed and hacking bloodily into a handkerchief. There's a cocktail of cancers rinsing her clean of humanity, but don't you be fooled by her frailty. Don't trip over your slack jaw. There's a fire in there still. I should know. Master Gunmetal hasn't shut up about her since he sniffed out the vibrations oscillating in his direction. Could sniff out a drop of piss in a chlorinated pool, could old Gunmetal. Oh ho! Oh joy and rapture, come closer and snigger with me, will you? For now you see the furtive and snuffling Master Stone. He's ever so humble, if you catch my drifting accusations, doggedly staring up the soldier charging the fog-bound battlefield, fog that swallowed up his army, and by the looks of it, the other army too. In any case, those flashes he's running towards probably aren't lightning. Always good for a laugh is a war around here, but it's more like snack food you shovel into your mouth, fistful by fistful, without really thinking. I can see you know all about that. But what's even better for a laugh is Master Stone, wringing his hands nervously because he doesn't know if he's going to drop off the bill again. Always loses his subjects in the dance, always loses focus. So now he's trying us with a battlefield. Poor dumb bastard. You two would get along. See the dead world dying all the time, where the elongated demise, the symphony of entropy and apathy keeps us going and comes to its crescendo tonight. Master Gainsborough's been grooming this one for some time, and you know what, Munchkin? I think he's just a smidge thrilled you're here. Having some real dead meat, see the death of life itself. Oh boy, oh golly, oh gee whiz. I'd shiver if I had a nervous system. And oof, will you look what Master Davy has for us that gets the skeletons creaking forwards in their seats. Prurient wee bastards wishing they had lips to lick. See the newspaper man preening in front of his full-length bedroom mirror, peacock of the walk. Not a care in the world that lies at his feet. Doesn't know we see him and have always seen him. And our man on the inside, oh, our surreal Svengali, our pataphysical provocateur will get him what he deserves. It's too late. He's already in there. Management's golden boy, that bloody lapdog. Have you ever felt that there was someone out to get you? Did you never think that the powers that be might have a retainer to do it for them? The surging blackness heaves and lashes. Management's in. They're ready for their well, bugger me sideways. There's not really a phrase I can squeeze through those chimp chromosomes of yours that'll do it real justice. It's a choice little number to kick things off. Somewhere between an aperitif and an overture. A prelude and foreplay. In this case, he's called Fergus Straw. Watch carefully. Picture start. 3, 2, 1. Right, carry on. I'm just going to check if there are people still there. Holy shit, there are people still here. Am I carrying on, kids? That's a third of the way. Am I continuing? Just give me a sign. I'm making down, make noises. Isn't that... I will proceed. If it is loved, I will continue. Good Lord, it's been a while since I've done this section. Understanding my French pronunciation is appalling. Fergus Straw, Party of 5, arrived at Goat to Spectator a little before 8 o'clock. The maitre d', a hyper-cleanly, feline sort of fellow, in his slim-fit black suit and skinny silver tie, saw them coming a mile off. Along the cobbled thoroughfare of what was once a thriving dockland, now a nighttime playground for the rich, beautiful, and momentarily famous, came 3 men and 2 women, dressed to the nines and chatting incomprehensibly. The doorman opened the polished glass and chrome door for them, bowed low, and they rumbled towards the maitre d' stood at his desk. He brushed his lapels, just in case a phantom wisp of fag ash clung to them, and inspected his nails. They were just as perfect as they were 5 minutes ago. He smiled. He was very good at that. Bag of straw, he purred. Party of 5. That's right, Fergus said. He smoothed his sandy hair down and looked around to size pardon me, and looked around to size up where it would be worth his wallet. The restaurant was a vast space built in the red brick husk of a former warehouse in mid-gentrified Dockland, where generations of dockers had sweated and heaved their livings. Now moguls and pretty young things fought for reservations to experience the much-talked-about fusion of existential transcendence and haute cuisine. If it wasn't red, black, or brilliant white, it didn't want to know. High-contrast photographs of naked models had been blown up to enormous tapestry-sized canvases hanging on the bare brick. The dockside walls on one side had been taken out and fitted with one-way glass, so that the diners could have a resplendent view of the river, and those outside could see their reflections, and how wretched they were for not getting in. It was a remarkably elegant design, which is to say that anyone with an eye for such things would have harboured the impression that the contractors and interior decorators had thrown around the words minimalist and chic as best they could, took the money, and ran. Not that it was built for the sort of people who had an eye for that kind of thing, mind you. The target clientele were the sort of people to hand over vast amounts of money on hearing sincere musing on the words minimalist and chic, and then marvel at how quickly anyone in those heels could sprint. And here were 5 of them. Table 12 is prepared for you, sir. The maitre d' shimmered from behind his desk and pleasantly bid them to follow him. This way, if you please. It was a matter of professional pride that the maitre d' of the Spectator, why did I fucking call it that, knew his new customers as if they were regulars. To that end, upon the booking of a reservation, he would turn detective and study all available and a little unavailable information of those in the reserved party. As reservations needed to be booked at least 4 months in advance for publicity purposes, he now knew all of the members of Fergus Draw's party very well indeed. Fergus, for instance. Private education and then Oxford had, at this point in his late 30s, mastered his real talent of turning avoiding prosecution into a sort of ballet. Having purchased, or rather, having had purchased for him, a failing Fleet Street newspaper, he had become a prince of the tabloids and brought a certain suaveness to his Orwellian trade. As it happened, that morning he had been acquitted of one more libel case. He had trudged, sorrowful and remorseful, into the court after breakfast and trotted out, probably whistling, at lunchtime. His reservation that evening was made in anticipation of a celebration. Ramsay was a doughy, jowly, septuagenarian Edinburgh lush, with an impressive coif of snow-white hair and a permanent sore redness in his cheeks and nose. He ran, so he said, something to do with computers, and by this late stage was an insatiable software gorger, acquiring new assets without ever really understanding anything they did. He tended to get most of his opinions on the outside world from Fergus and his newspapers. The 2 women in the group, Georgette, who was blonde, and Lucia, who was brunette, dyed blonde, were of that breed of beautiful, vapid young folk who had made a tremendously good living out of being beautiful, vapid, and young. That Fergus and Ramsay were using them as window dressing, and that Fergus was using them on alternating Fridays for different reasons altogether, didn't occur to them as much of a problem, because if it had turned out any other way, they'd have gone to find another window to decorate. If they weren't photographed somewhere, they generally agreed, the place didn't exist. They were a staple of chat shows, reality shows, and anything ITV was kicking around the office, who always went everywhere together because they were BFFs. That they deeply and passionately despised each other didn't seem to be much of a problem either. And Norman, poor Norman, an achingly thin and anemic-looking fellow with watery eyes and greyish complexion, who held a minor and menial position in the cabinet office, was the country's most gifted eavesdropper, and always good for a bit of corridors of power gossip. It was understood that he fancied himself as a bit of a political mongoose. In reality, he was scarcely ever rated above chinchilla. The maitre d' weaved them among a maze of empty tables. Apart from an old fat man and a young thin woman having half a good time, that is to say, he was having a good time at table 2, the whole place was empty. There was no real sign that anyone else had ever been there. Fergus did his best to be nonchalant and unimpressed. He even yawned a little into his hand. Not a good sign, I think, he said. Damn place is empty. We only allow a maximum of 2 reservations an evening here, sir, the maitre d' said. Sometimes we never allow anyone in at all. We also maintain a limited number of staff. I am your maitre d', sole waiter, and sommelier. He quietly pulled the chairs around table 12 out one by one and seated them all in turn. The aim is to create a dining experience that is as intimate as it is exclusive. Well, Ramsay burbled. He gestured with a fish fork to the cackling blob of a man far off at table 2. He seems to get the idea of intimacy. The fat man was roaring with laughter, a chewed and gummy bread roll packing his maw. As he roared, he wobbled with seismic precision. His young lady friend sat with her elegant head resting on her elegant hand, glaring distantly at him with an expression that spoke of happier times in her life and a more than academic curiosity about just how to get back to them. The maitre d' smiled at table 12. He was good at smiling. It kept him in cufflinks. Yes, he said. I do think the lady will find him to be a handful. Or, should I say, he paused coyly. Mouthful. The group found this marvellously funny. They liked their servants to be witty and personable. The maitre d' liked to be paid. He offered them wine. They ordered wine. He brought and poured them wine. In that respect, the evening could have been called a resounding success. Smiling companionably, the maitre d' silently wheeled over a small service trolley with a stylish black cloth draped delicately over it. He coughed politely to gain their attention. Is this our first time dining here this evening? He pulled on a pair of disposable latex gloves. Yep, first time, Ramsay belched. But we've had it's simply the most remarkable experience you can have at dinner, Georgette purred. Not one to be outfawned, Lucia chimed in, leaning over the back of her chair conspiratorially to the maitre d' in his trolley. Is it really as special as people have been saying? I mean, like, really? He smiled his perfect, soft smile, and assisted Ramsay in refilling his glass. I assure you, madam, it is nothing short of exceptional. At the risk of a little melodrama, ladies and gentlemen, I can safely say it will change the way you think about fine dining. Much can be revealed from our tastes, more so than sight or sound or touch. Now, he picked the cloth primly from the trolley, like the better class of magician, to reveal a highly polished silver kidney dish, on which a handsomely proportioned syringe lay on a bed of crushed ice. There was a twist of spiralized lime as well, just to give it a certain something. The maitre d' took out the syringe and held it up so that it was visible to all, and flicked it twice. Who is our lucky host? Fergus raised his hand and beamed like a particularly self-satisfied lighthouse to a dramatic chorus of ohs and sporadic clapping from his friends. The maitre d' asked if he had any preference of left or right arm, but Fergus, being of the opinion that if you have the limelight, you'd best do something to keep it, loosened his tie and offered his neck. The ohs took on a more prominent intonation as the maitre d' obliged. Oh my gosh, Georgette gasped. I'm shaking. I'm genuinely, literally shaking. Feel. She thrust her hand into the center of the table where the others felt it and agreed. Yes, she was genuinely, literally shaking, despite the fact she actually wasn't. Fergus never flinched as the syringe filled with his dark, purplish blood. He never dropped his crooked side-of-the-mouth smile, and after the maitre d' had removed the needle and applied a small sticking plaster from a range of skin tones, Fergus slipped a discreet 20 into the man's front pocket. Customarily speaking, the going rate for not nicking a major artery in a restaurant was 50, but this didn't strike the maitre d' as a reasonable time for hair-splitting. That came later. "Thank you very much, sir. I shall return shortly to take your orders," he said, and with a swift flourish he had replaced the syringe on its ice bed, tucked it in with a black cloth, and hovered away silently out of sight with the trolley. "I can't wait to find out what it's like," Lucia piped up giddily, near hopping in hissy. "You're so brave, Fergus. I don't think I'd have been able to do it." He waved his hand in the air, theoretically to bat the comment away, practically to stir up more. "Let's just wait and see. I just hope it's not more than you can all handle. For the costs, you should all be paying me," he declared. The table rippled with laughter. He rubbed his right foot smoothly and softly up the length of Lucia's calf. After a moment, he rubbed his left foot softly and smoothly up the length of Georgette's. Fergus was an eggs-in-many-baskets kind of guy. It was the only sincere and legal reason he'd survived so long. He eased back in his chair, sniffed his wine, and took a long, satisfied sip. And he was drowning. His mouth and nostrils and eyes were swamped with a clinging, viscous solution that he was utterly submerged in. He gasped, tried to scream, but only succeeded in filling up his lungs. Pain and panic struck him like a fever. Every nerve-ending shrieked desperate alarm. He kicked and thrashed around with soupy sloshes and dull thumps. There were walls and a ceiling and a floor, but he couldn't escape. He was in a flooded coffin. But there was light from somewhere, and he saw the liquid that choked him was a pale, thin yellow. Not that it mattered all that much, as the black spots and quiet ringing in his ears began to set in, and regardless of his frenzied thrashing and pummeling, knew he was starting in earnest to drown. With a sudden and spirited swoosh, he was falling sideways. No, he was sucked forcefully sideways, flushed violently sideways, as the wall his left side was pressed against revealed itself to be a hatch of some sort. He landed with a soaked thump, and lay on a cold, wet, and slimy floor. Sure enough, he too was cold, wet, and slimy, and he realized, after he had successfully voided the vile liquid out of his lungs, completely naked. Watch and signet ring gone. Silk socks gone. £2,000 suit gone. He tried to struggle to his feet, but after a dispute about what his nervous system was willing to put up with at present, compromised at struggling to his hands and knees. The slimy stuff was everywhere, his whole naked form coated and slippery with it. He was shivering. His head felt like it had taken a hammering, and he stayed there, spluttering and hacking, his eyes and nose streaming, fighting hard to get a handle on what was happening. He tried to speak. Why? Was the best he could do. He looked around him, as much as his blurred vision would allow him to, and he made out a thin, approaching figure, shimmering and smeared before his hazy eyes. He thought it had said something, but couldn't make it out. He was cut off by a forceful jet of freezing water that struck his body like a hammer. A roaring, hissing tumult threw him backwards against something hard and unyielding, throwing up his arms and legs to push back the flood. He felt the slime that clung to him being ripped away, his eyes and nostrils cleared of the muck only to be filled with freezing water. At length, the tumult fell away from him, and he was conscious of the swishing, swooshing percussion of water spraying metal. Then it died away entirely. He gasped in great gulps of hot, spicy air, and shook the heaviest of the water from him. He could see again. An acne-scarred youth in a trim black uniform was standing above him with a dripping industrial-standard hose in his hand. He was chewing something. It made him look like livestock. Fergus spat and swore inarticulately, so cold as to be painful. Excuse me. His experience wasn't improved by the realization he was huddled up in some sort of vast metal tray or trough. Hose water and yellow slime were hurrying away down drains in the corners. He wiped the blood from out of his face. He wiped the water from out of his face. He had been thrown up against a pipe feeding into the tank that he'd been drowning in. There was writing on the pipe. It said, "Amniotic fluid. Warning. High pressure." Just what the hell do you think you're doing? Fergus hollered. He braced himself against the pipe and carefully raised himself up on wobbly legs. Where in God's name am I? What's happening? Who are you people? Where are my friends? The youth looked at him up and down, but it occurred to Fergus didn't actually look at him. This was a new and unwelcome experience. The youth looked over his shoulder and shouted to an older man leaning over a countertop with a roll-up cigarette hanging from his lips. Table 12, he called. He threw the hose aside and walked away. Yes, right, said Fergus. That's where I was. Hey, hang on. Is this still the restaurant? God, am I in the kitchen? Why am I naked? What's going on? Hey, are you listening to me? The old man leaning on the countertop looked up from his newspaper. Hey, he said. I said, are you listening? Table 12, mate, the youth said, and went back about his business. The old man nodded, stubbed out his cigarette, folded over his racing post, and grabbed a fistful of paraphernalia from the counter. He headed over with a stiff rolling motion. He was an unremarkable creature, late 50s maybe, his close-cut grey-silver hair. With close-cut grey-silver hair, thin-rimmed spectacles, a wide razor-burned face, and very large hands. All in all, he was shaped like a short stack of barrels with rolled-up shirt sleeves and a striped apron. He took a long academic look at Fergus and grumbled. Oh, bleeding hell, he snarled. He called back into the kitchen to the toing and throwing figures. Yeah, this one's still got hair. Teeth and all. Oh, I don't know. I'm not a friggin' barber, am I? Oh, well. He stepped towards Fergus with a brown strap in his hand, and in a blare of well-practiced motion it put a collar on him. It fit tightly. Little loops of leather and metal rings hung from it. It happened so quickly. It had all happened so quickly. Fergus didn't have time to say anything, but once he saw the old man had a long cable tie in his paw and was making for Fergus's wrists, he threw up his hands and darted out of the trough. Get your fucking hands off me, he yelled. The old man rolled his eyes and shook his head. Come on now, he cooed, sounding curious like a vet. It'll all be over before you know it, and then we can all go home. He advanced deliberately. That's a hell of a word. Fergus matching him step for step in the opposite direction. Home's exactly where I'm going, you creep. Help! Help! Shouldn't actually shout that too loudly in this street. He bolted away from the old man with no definite destination in mind. He was definitely in the kitchen. Black and white floors, close and stifling atmosphere, an oppressive pandemonium of sounds and smells, garlic, sage, red wine, olive oil, roasting meat, and great flamboyant bursts of flame from the hobs of a particularly ostentatious flambe that plunged the whole place into momentarily washes of red and purple. None of the chefs, dishwashers, or attendants paid the slightest bit of attention to the dripping, wet, naked man crying out for help. He couldn't get to the door. The old man was picking his teeth and walking casually between he and it, but he could get at the service hatch. He plunged over to it, knocking away order sheets and a couple of plates to smash on the other side, and got a clear view into the restaurant where he resumed his cries for help. His eyes roamed around the black, white, and red interior of the restaurant, looking for anyone he recognized to catch their attention. His gaze scoped across the high-contrast canvases, the glass walls to the table he'd been sat at, and sure enough saw... His eyes widened. His mouth quivered and dried. His heart came to a crashing stop. All was cold. Oh, he said softly. All right. That's not right at all. He didn't tell me that there was a tearing sound and a gnawing pain in his wrists. He whipped his head around and saw the old man had, in a heartbeat, grabbed his hands and bound his wrists with the cable tie. There was no fuss. Without bearing Fergus a second glance, he grabbed the rings in his collar and pulled him back to the trough he had been deposited in. Through his fog of confused horror, Fergus was aware that the old man was drawing on his naked body. He produced a fat, black felt-tipped pen and was taking great care in marking dashed lines around his thighs, shoulders, stomach, the small of his back, and intermittently would grab a great cold handful of his flesh and give it an exploratory squeeze. With a huff and a thoughtful murmur, hand and pen found their way to Fergus's buttocks. He spluttered with indignation, his teeth chattering. Do you know who I am? For the first time, the old man in the striped apron looked at him as if he was an intelligent being. He blinked and regarded Fergus with bored surprise. Then he pointedly snapped the lid back onto his pen and returned it to his apron pouch. Do you know who I am? What? Well, no. Then why the fuck should I care? Come on, let's get it over with. The old man deftly fitted his thick middle finger through the loop of Fergus's collar and dragged him neatly through some plastic strips into a white and silver antechamber beyond. There was a quiet metallic clanking overhead. Fergus was running out of things to say, but lunged blindly at any half-thought-out tactic that came to mind. He was standing in another wide metal tray. There was a drain on the floor. Look here, mate. Sorry, what's your name? Mr. Morlock. Mr. Morlock said, passively. He busied himself untying a rope. Fergus hadn't realised was there. Something lowered down alongside him, and with a metal thunk beside his feet. Fergus babbled on. Morlock paid him no mind whatsoever. Right, well, Mr. Morlock, see, the thing is, as it were, so to speak, not to put too fine a point on it, I'm not supposed to be in here. In fact, I'm supposed to be out there. There's been some tremendous cock up, but I'm not a vindictive man. You just let me go about my business, and we'll say no more about it. If you let me go, why I can make it worth your while. Not that you'd know to look at me, but I'm a very, very wealthy man. Mr. Morlock stood staring at him quietly as he finished his little speech. He had picked a heavy stainless steel hook up off the floor, a slack rope trailing away from it. When Fergus had definitely come to an end, he sniffed quietly and pushed his spectacles up his perspiring nose. I know, he said. That's why you can afford the pleasure of being in here. Or rather, he gestured with the hook through the plastic to the service hatch into the restaurant, can afford the pleasure of you being in here. So, really, he's a very, very wealthy man. And you're, well, funny old world, isn't it? This is going to hurt a lot. White lights of agony burst behind Fergus's eyes. His legs roared with a high-voltage electrical piercing sensation that turned his innards all to water. He shrieked a ghastly, gurgling howl, and the next thing he knew, his feet were pulled from under him, and his head smashed bluntly against the metal floor. The electric pain roared all the worse in his ankles, and he had the sickening, lurching experience of being hoisted up into the air upside down. His head was already beginning to bruise, his vision shaken and distorted, but as he stopped rising and began to swing softly from side to side, he could see Mr. Morlock heaving on the rope with remarkable ease and tying it off. He huffed inside to himself and wiped his speckled brow with a cloth dangling from his back pocket. I don't know, hardly seems humane, that's what I reckon, Morlock said, but Fergus understood he was just thinking out loud. He tells we can't start him because it isn't in keeping with the experience and aesthetics of the establishment. Of course, what they don't seem to realise is that stress and struggling can spoil the meat, but what do I know? I only friggin' work here. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. He waved his hands dismissively and rolled away through the plastic back into the main kitchen, leaving Fergus all alone, swinging on his hook. It gave him time to focus on where he was. He wasn't alone in the antechamber. As his swaying turned him around on his hook, he saw 3 long metal tables. A man and a woman in striped aprons of their own were busy butchering a corpse that lay on one of them, with knives and saws jointing and filleting the body along the lines drawn on it. It looked exactly like the fat man from table 2. Fergus was shuddering violently and uncontrollably all over. He wanted to scream, to shriek, to howl and holler and bellow, but between his concussion, his blood loss, and the shock of it all, all he could manage was a vain, clucking, choking sound in his throat. The last intelligible thought to go through his head was, this is not what was advertised. They can't do this to me. Hook twisted him around again slowly, and as it did so, he saw Morlock re-entering through the plastic flaps. He had donned shoulder-length black leather gloves. Now, said Morlock. He was frowning at a pad he held in his left hand. In his right hand, He held an impressively deadly-looking knife. How can I put this? Right. Have you ever made a habit of eating veal? The blood was pooling in Fergus's skull. His larynx came up to meet his molars. Yes, he said. Funny bit. Morlock shrugged and put the pad aside. He grabbed Fergus dispassionately by the hair, tilting his head, and then angled the blade this way and that way across his throat. He decided on his angle. You are what you eat, eh? Are you all still there? Oh, you are all still here. Oh, Lord, it's happening. Right, well, there's one last part of what I submitted, so this is the last section. Let me have some cider. Mr. Morlock was tonight played by Alan Moore. The plates were shiny black china rectangles. The cuts of meat, a mix of chops, steak, cutlet, and rack, looked and smelled incredible. They were elegantly arranged with some kind of delicate fried potato salad and swirled cranberry compote that looked like peacock tails adorning the meat. Fergus couldn't imagine what the thinking behind pairing the meat with the cranberry was. He would potentially have been insulted by Apple, but then he hadn't been in the kitchen, had he? He himself was not eating. That wasn't the point of the dining experience. So he picked up his fresh glass of wine and settled back to enjoy his friends enjoying their food. They cooed and admired it for an appropriate while. They charged... Oh, fuck me, I've just noticed a typo. Oh well. They charged a hearty toast to Fergus's continued good fortune, and then armed themselves with knife and fork after Ramsay had managed at last to tuck a napkin into his collar. They began to eat. Thoughtful chewing ensued. Fergus smirked. A few moments ticked by, and Fergus's smirk fell slowly by degrees until it was utterly extinguished. First, he noticed the anticipated sated sounds of delicious delights fail to appear. Then he noticed that no one had cut off a second piece. Then he noticed the sideways, grimacing glances that one gave the other, but never looked at him. And finally, he noticed the abject, awkward silence that they were all sitting in. What is it? He said. What's the matter? Ramsay wiped his mouth and trailed off. Yes, it's definitely, Lucia said. Norman moved some of the potato around with his fork. Accommodating, or at least cowardly by nature, he piped up with a thought. It's very rich, he said. The other seemed momentarily relieved by this, and agreed wholeheartedly, even enthusiastically. Oh, yes, it's definitely very rich. And it looks incredible, Lucia added. But then they grumbled towards silence. Fergus sat aghast. The needle prick on his neck was now very itchy indeed. And? He squawked. Is that all? No one was forthcoming with anything. He jabbered a little. They were all making him feel like he'd committed some frightful faux pas at a funeral, or like he'd been invited into a harem and his member wasn't as equine as advertised. But surely, he thought, it had other saving qualities? Ramsay? The older man looked up at him reluctantly. He cleared his throat and pulled off his napkin, unconsciously throwing it over the food. Well, he cleared his throat again. I'm afraid to say it tastes rather, it tastes rather cheap. Fergus blinked in horror. I thought you said it was rich, he said. Oh, aye, Ramsay said. Very rich indeed, but... Indeed, Christ. But sort of, cheap at the same time. Sort of grisly, Lucia said. She tried to pick pieces of it surreptitiously out of her mouth. Aye, that's right, Ramsay said. Sort of tasteless, sort of sanguine, sort of overdone. But, Norman said, very rich. Oh, yes, the others agreed again. Very rich indeed. Fergus shook. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He looked despondently about for some sort of succor, reassurance, affirmation even. He had one card left to play. Georgette hadn't said a word. She was sat staring at her plate and hadn't uttered a single syllable. She'd have something positive to say. It was Friday, their Friday. At least he bloody hoped it was. He turned his voice as plummy and as sweet as he could. Georgette? She looked at him. Her eyes bulged. Well, she squirmed awkwardly in her seat. Look, darling, soz awfully, but I just can't stomach it. Cold panic shuddered through him. Everyone around the table was nodding gravely, fidgeting with embarrassment. Then all at once there was a dreadful snare rattle of cutlery being dropped onto plates, the plates themselves pushed away with solemn disdain. Really hard to swallow. Lucia dabbed her lips with the corner of a napkin. No! He cried out, betraying a little more in the way of desperation than he may have liked. His default setting of smoke cool kicked in. He chuckled. Look, it's fine, really. Watch this. He snatched a knife and fork and started cutting away at the meat on Lucia's plate. It was cooked immaculately, like cutting through butter. The others ummed and ahed, and I don't think you're supposed to do that, in that English way that denotes serious alarm and existential dread, but we're in a nice restaurant and don't want to make a fuss about it. Honestly, what's the matter with you all? Haven't you got any taste? And shoveled the pierced sliver of flesh into his waiting mouth. He immediately regretted his decision. The meat filled up his mouth like an expanding foam. He couldn't adequately get his teeth around it. His face puffed up. He snorted air greedily and noisily in through his nose. It tasted, well, not necessarily revolting, but it didn't taste anywhere near as good as it looked. Sort of greasy, sort of grainy, sort of flavourless on the whole, sort of empty. It was like chewing the smell of burnt fat, and there was an emerging possibility that it was choking him. Fergus? Ramsay babbled. Are you all right, old son? I'm abandoning the Scots. What did he say? Ramsay asked. Georgette grimaced and raised her hand to her mouth in disgust. Oh, God, Fergus, don't speak of your mouthful, for God's sake. There were tears welling up in his eyes. Black spots began to dance in front of him. Cold sweat slickened his cold skin. His heart thundered in his chest. The lump of flesh in his mouth held moisture out of it. It began to feel intolerably greasy, lolling on his tongue. He knew that what he had to do, but it would be game over. They were all staring at him. Time was ticking away, precious final seconds. Desperate for air, he snatched at one of the stylish black cloth napkins and emptied the half-pulped mass of meat into it with a sickly, sippy sound. He looked up through streaming eyes at the disgust and shame-bent faces of his friends. There was snot trickling down his lip. At last, he said meekly, I think I've bitten off more than I can chew. And that was very much the end of dinner. Silence fell like a year's worth of snow across the sad souls at table 12. The others, that's the word, the others looked in every direction, at their plates, at the window, at each other from under sunken brows, but never at Fergus. It is, Norman said, a man whose sole understanding of diplomacy came from listening through locked doors, very rich. For Fergus, it was as if the lucky streak had come to a crashing halt. On one spin of the roulette wheel, he was broke. The house heavies came to collect, and he was outside on the pavement nursing a bloodied nose before he could make a guess at what had happened. None of his friends could stomach him. He flopped back, clammy and deflated, into his chair and hadn't noticed that the maitre d' had materialized suddenly beside him. He cleared his throat politely to announce himself at last. Would Sir care for some coffee? Or would you prefer to cut straight to the ironical idiom? I beg your pardon? Fergus mewed. Coffee, sir? Or something from the sweets menu, perhaps? Sweets? Oh, God, no! No, just the check, quickly. The maitre d' bounced his immaculate eyebrows and swished around on his heels. "Very good, sir," he said, and glided away. The others had all made their excuses with, it seemed to Fergus, indecent promptness, and left him alone to settle the bill in the vast and empty restaurant. Having paid up, he sat in grim silence at the table, swallowing the last of the wine little by little and staring at the places where the meal had been. He could still see the plates in his mind's eye, still see the arrangement of the meat, the eloquent plating of an upmarket establishment. He felt sick in a new and harrowing manner. In a moment he had gone from toast of the town to a pariah. Lucia and Georgette had both simultaneously received text messages about a VIP party they simply had to attend, which Fergus had found odd because he hadn't heard either of their phones vibrate. Ramsay had yawned broadly and said he had to get back to relieve the babysitter, which Fergus had found doubly odd because he knew Ramsay hadn't seen his children for 16 years. Norman had business to attend to in Whitehall, but at least he had the common decency not to pretend the country had been invaded or nuked or sold to Beijing or something like that. All had been the epitome of politeness, hands were shaken, cheeks were kissed, all thanked him for a wonderful evening and assured him that they would be in touch in the coming week to meet up again. And then they'd left. And it was the last time he ever saw any of them. He felt hideously exposed, naked, vulnerable even. A few forkfuls had succeeded where courts, investigators, and HMRC had utterly failed. He didn't know how to go on. But leaving this godforsaken restaurant and never coming back seemed like a good enough start. He stumbled to his feet and carefully navigated himself between the empty tables towards the door. He didn't look at the maitre d' as he passed, but with his hand on the door handle, he heard the man's voice call from behind him. "Oh, before you go, Mr. Strawser." The maitre d' waved his impeccably manicured hand through the air and summoned Fergus back. He placed a very stylish black cardboard box onto the desk. It was a little wider and a good deal deeper than your average shoebox, with an intricate folding mechanism keeping it sealed. The restaurant's name and telephone number were printed on it in elegant white letters. Fergus stared at it, waves of nausea rolling over him. He felt as if he was suffocating. He was wreathed in a cold sweat. "Your carry-out, Mr. Straw. Wouldn't want you to lose it, sir." He smiled warmly, exhibiting a row of sharp white teeth, and delicately slid the box across the desk. Fergus looked at it blankly for a moment, and then carefully picked it up in clammy, shaking hands. "With our compliments, sir. We do hope to see you again, sir, if you have the stomach for it." Without another word, Fergus Straw went out into the night with his head in his hands. And the crowd goes wild. Well, inasmuch as an endless assemblage of wood-grain dappled skeletons can go wild. There's no vocal exultation, no spontaneous ovations of the standing variety, or the reckless abandon of applause. All that stuff is too mushy, too glandular, too dead meat, if you know what I'm saying. Instead, they sit motionless as they ever did, the shimmering submarine silver floating across each varnished totenkopf, and click their fingers in rhythmic beatnik appreciation. But so many skeletons and so many clicking fingers, it sounds like a furious hailstorm of rattling dice tumbling down and down from the deep and swirling ceiling. You know what? I think they like that one. There's something satisfying about it. Master Davy seems pleased with himself. Look how all of his eyes have lit up with that municipal orange glow, even the few that float around his head. Self-satisfied prick. He'll be even worse when that... Ah, would you look at that? It's like molten wax in water. A chunky gold and emerald globule, gloopily... I can make up words if I want to, you know exactly what I mean. Disgorging itself from the floor and rising upwards, turning softly as it climbs. Up and up it goes, shedding a feeble glow into the silvery stutters, and becoming with each foot ascended a little more transparent, a little less substantial. And then it climbs towards management's lair, where the blackness gurgles and snarls and vibrates the darkness. Perhaps you make out something like vast cephalopod bodies slowly writhing. Perhaps you don't. You probably don't. Do you know what it is? Do you? That's what a ghost looks like. Now you may well say, but Marengo, you'd already forgotten, hadn't you? But Marengo, that doesn't look like a ghost to me. Well, I'd say, how do you even know what a ghost looks like? As it happens, this isn't the ghost of a person. It's the ghost of what we took from Fergus Straw. I'm sure he'd appreciate being the opening act, but perhaps not that all his life's work boiled down to nothing more than whetting the appetites of his invisible masters, his reputation more than a drop of blood in some very, very specific waters. Because that's all you are, child. You'd better learn that fast. You're entertainment to us, nothing more. The bigger you get and the harder you fall is how we fill these timeless plains. Fergus Straw's nightmare is just the taster of what we engineer. And you should hang your head in shame that you will never live a life big enough or interesting enough to warrant a spot in the sextet. Your deaths, all of them, for every death of every kind is one more definitive note in the pan-dimensional orchestra by which we sing our songs and dance our dances, will be the adverts we fast forward through to get to something juicier. That's why you're here, to witness how to play the game properly, how to die properly, how to die interestingly enough for us to care about you. You're going to watch our show. You're going to watch our game. You're going to watch the lives we've groomed play against our machinations, and you're going to see how all those tributaries run together and maybe come out of your own dead meat cage. Maybe you'll learn something. I doubt it, but you might. I mean, anything's possible. They might actually put Stone Soldier into the mix, but I know for a fact they'll leave the dumb rifle-toting son of a bitch waiting off stage somewhere where nothing can happen to him. Unlike the others. Oh, unlike the others. Because they're not all jerk-offs like Straw. Tell me this, my sunshine and daisies buddy. Do you think there are good people? Do you think there are bad people? For that matter, do you think it makes a blind bit of difference to us when we sniff you out? All right, try this one on for size, and then we'll start. Given what you know about reality now, what the hell do you think the precious gift of life is even for? We've got to do something, you and me. We've got to get in there. You keep them distracted, and don't blow this for me. This is my big break. I'll show them. They're not the only show in town. I'm going to be a star. Now take a deep breath for me, as if there were any oxygen. Take a nice deep breath for old Master Marengo. Wipe your nose and tuck in your shirt and submit yourself. Submerge yourself and feel the autonomous strands of your spirit ripple and sway to the music of the Dead Meat Sextet. Into the absurd kaleidoscope, the big depths, the little depths, the depths of flesh, the depths of thought. La dolce morte. So that's a thing. Holy shit, hello, Macienda. I finished that at exactly the right moment, didn't I? Yeah, so that is part one of the greatest book you will never read. I hope you enjoyed it. It's my little birthday party to myself. The little birthday party. It got me, guys. I think the fact that I got that all through. Oh, how nice! A slight glitch in StreamYard kept my place in the comments. Gunham readings. Dal has chocolate. Chal has docklet. Half a bottle of cider, and I'm all into the spoonerisms. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. I'm just looking at how you've been talking amongst yourselves. I have been taken to the sofa and the armchair. Voice acting. It really isn't quite. Yeah, I noticed a second typo as well. I also just started saying the word restaurant because I really cannot pronounce the name of the thing I named it, which doesn't bode well for me ever doing my own audiobook. Aphrodite, I am here to serve. I am open to all submissions for this reading. I think I have. I've got the Shattered audiobook. No, I am the Shattered audiobook. I think I've got the Kindle here. Yes, Masinda, thank you ever so much for joining. It's been a good old while. I hope you're well. Yeah, I don't know how Marengo's voice ended up being that way, but so yeah, that's what he sounds like. He came out cattier than I. No, not cattier as in our cattier. I mean cattier as in. Oh, that really annoyed the dog. That really annoyed the dog. I've been sent. Hang on to Facebook at once. But yes, that is the section that is currently swimming around particular agents, and I really hope one agent in particular never sees this recording because he's in Scotland. And usually I can do an okay generalized Scottish accent. Have I been sent something? Ah, there it is. Let us open this PDF. What is a birthday without giving out gifts and stuff? The dog Vincent is currently lying in the hall because we're in the middle of a heat wave and it's the coolest part of the house. So he's lay on the tiles, cooling down. Oh, fantastic! Oh, I'm so very very happy for you. Congratulations. I'm trying to flog this book, writing a couple of others at the same time because I'm a fool. And I'm massively enjoying my birthday, more so than I usually do. Sir. In an alternate universe, the United Republics of South America. Okie dokie. We have a story from Aphrodite here. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I'm reading this completely blind, or rather, I'm reading it sight unseen. So here we go. I have no frame of reference for what these voices should be, so I'm going to do them vanilla. How much time do I have left? It's hard to say, Miss Kim, Dr. Welch says as she fidgets in her chair. Nothing's written in stone. I let out an exhausted breath and roll my eyes. Ballpark? Could be weeks. Could be months. she says, with the practiced optimism of a seasoned doctor, but not indeed of a slightly inebriated voice actor. Could be days, could be hours, I return in the same tone. I know I am making her uncomfortable, but fuck her. You don't get to pass out death sentences and then pussyfoot around with the details. This is my life we're talking about. Or at least what's left of it. With treatment, a couple of months. And without? I don't recommend that. Without? Weeks, she says. No reflections. I smile as I gather my things and head for the door. Miss Kent, please reconsider. Medications will make it much easier to bear. I open the door and leave. I open the door to leave and then pause. Easier? Why should dying be easier? Life sure as fuck wasn't. Thank you for your time. I wait for a bunch of my co-workers as I return to my desk. My food truck purchased lunch. The walk to my cubicle at the far end of the floor seemed longer and harder to manage. I love that I'm holed up in the corner where other workers didn't have to stroll past me throughout the day. If someone was heading toward my desk, I knew before they got there that they must really need me specifically, and not an annoyance of office niceties as they passed. Business. Then back to business. Then solitude. I like to be left to my job. But today, the walk seems wrong. Why am I letting this be okay? Why did I even return here? Am I really going to spend the last minutes of my life walking this way to my desk until my body gave out? I opened up the lackluster-looking brown food that cost way more than it should have, and stared down at it. This too? This food? Am I supposed to let these things be my lasts? The phone rings, and I answer. You extended your lunch without notifying me, the voice said on the other end. I will have to write you up. Okay. I hang up. The phone rings again. The hum of the office also begins to ring in my ears. Something I've always wanted, something I was always able to shut out so well. But not now. I ignore the phone, grab my belongings, and head back towards the elevators. No attention drawn whatsoever. Nothing new. I'm about to step onto the elevator when my supervisor comes up behind me and puts her hand on my shoulder to stop me. Thalia, where are you off to now? You literally just got back. Home. Excuse me? I pull away and step onto the next car just as the doors were closing. This is not acceptable, Thalia. Thalia. My supervisor snaps. Whatever else she had to say, I drowned out as I watched the numbers blink on, and out as I descended. My car automatically heads for home before I even realized I'd driven into traffic. A jaunt that rarely registered in my brain. Most days I was home, fed, in bed without realizing I'd even made the effort. What a life. A life that is now ending. One too pathetic to even mourn. Happy birthday to me. Magnifique. Magnifique, Aphrodite. Oh, hello, Alexis. Thank you so much for joining me. A happy ending. It reminded me, I think I recommended this to Chris, and I think he read it. I can't exactly remember. I live my life on recommendations, but probably the best short story I ever read likewise began in a doctor's surgery, by Adam Marek, and it's just the greatest title for a short story ever. It was called "Testicular Cancer versus the Behemoth," and I loved it. I advise everybody to read Anniversaire as quickly as I can. So, I have inflicted my own writing. Oh, hang on a second. My special date, I don't know, is 28 really worth marking? This is what I'm doing. There's nowhere to go because I live in a hotspot of the word we cannot say because YouTube don't like it. But yeah, it is not safe to certainly because I'm a very risk of exposing a little bit of my personal details. I'm a carer, and I look after not the word, not vulnerable, at risk individuals. So I can't go nowhere. I cannot go anywhere. So I'm going to. I've got a couple of steaks in the fridge, which I'm going to eat bloodier than Prince Alexei's handkerchief. And I've got Doctor Strangelove taped, so I think I'll watch that while I into it, and then I'll probably just get on with my new book. All right, in a manner, it's all very ad hoc here. In fact, it bothers me that I will never be able to conjure up, and I think you've all had a little glimpse at my imagination. But I could never cook up a situation that matches Great Britain right now. I'll tell you what, anybody who, for whatever reason, watches the replay of this is going to get really confused. So, what can I do for you all? I'm just, seriously, I'm just chilling here and drinking this. Ask and I shall answer. I will do or say whatever you request of me. What is your state, Aphrodite? Oh, shit, yes. Thank you, Chris. Do you want to go ahead while I dig it out again? Do you want to go and explain exactly what this is, Chris? It's down here somewhere. I know Maryland. It's where Dr. McNinja's based. This is a thing that exists. I am in possession of it. I'm getting a feeling that what it means is you've had to like have watched one of my videos in order to get the dialogue from it. This may be the first instance where it's the where the stream was purely observing the comments. This is where the action is. It's yes, Chris has bestowed upon me, I dare say because it's my birthday. Yeah, Chris has created some what now fan fiction. Because this is the world I live in. It's nice being a cult leader, you know? Now, this one I am reading sight unseen. I said to him earlier that I wasn't going to read it in that moment because I was going to save it for here. And it's lucky that you stayed up to come and watch, because otherwise I would have forgotten, which seems to be my life now. But that's lithium carbonate for you. Okie dokie. Okay, where the hell have you been? You can't just go breaking my heart like that. It's not fair. Okay. This is somewhat now fan fiction. It is really fucking weird referring to myself in the third person. It's like being stretched into an extra dimension. Sean stroked his beard as he monologued into the camera. But for all of this, I have never in all my years come across a decent argument for why telling is bad. Ever. I have never. It's not even that I've come across bad arguments. Not even when I got on the roof of a Hard Day Nights hotel to shout this at passers-by. I have never been in that hotel, and you know full well. He checked his phone. 3:01 a.m. The camera stared at him from atop a pile of hardbacks, a makeshift tripod. Fuck. Wait a minute, he murmured. That didn't happen. It didn't. He turned the camera off, picked up his empty tea-stained Buzz Lightyear mug, and prowled through the jungle of half-unpacked cardboard. You have never been in this house. How do you... To the wardrobe. It was wrought of wood so dark it distorted light around it. Oh. At his touch, sigils and warding circles appeared, glowing white on the wood. Sean muttered the incantation and opened the doors. No clothes hung inside. There was only a stone dais supporting a mason jar filled with beige goo. It frothed at the light from the bedroom touched it. Calm down, Sean said, tapping the mug with his pagan star ring. It's a thaumaturgic star, specifically. Just here for a top-up. I have seen rivers burn, hissed the goo. I have held stars in my hand and bitten them like apples. I am a king, not your... Yes. Sean touched his mug to the jar. Semi-skimmed milk this time, if you don't mind. Or I can get the lamp again. It's no trouble. The goo was silent. It wobbled like jelly. The mug filled with tea the colour... The mug filled with tea the colour of He-Man's skin. He knows me. Wonderful. Sean went to close the wardrobe. I am ready to deal. Its master stopped, door in hand. Promise me everything. A mountain of gold. Immortality. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Book 6 by Neil Gaiman. It will be yours. Sean tapped his chin, nodding slowly. Have you ever heard of a genie? Free me and I'll give you hundreds of them. No, that's my point. They always fuck you over. Call to adventure refused. Heavy rain glass bottle. He closed the wardrobe, silencing the screams of the goo. He replaced the wards and went back to the camera. Turned it on. It's about a balance between the two. It's about knowing when to tell and when to show. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Well, that's thank you very much. That's magnificent. And Chris is open to commissions to do fan fictions for each of your respective online personas. My throat hurts after that. in top office. Yeah, I'm a notoriously private individual, so having someone here who I actually know properly is disconcerting. Like, dude, come on. I want to be cool. Well, yeah, I get that, but it's the same for me. So I've got this. Why will you have nightmares, Dal? Come, come. I'm now remembering your horse one, Chris. Was it the horse? I think I did it when Dal was on one of my streams. So the point was to illustrate the points in it. It's because I never want you to not do these things. Just that, just that and more of it. My. Absolutely remarkable. I'm very, very happy with that. Thank you. I like this. This means that we could possibly turn Chris into like the troubadour of Orphatube. Or the scribe. The bard. Is it? Well, you've got to have said that now, okay? So now you've got to tell me what the hell Pennsylvania liquor laws are. Well, actually, you talk amongst yourselves for a moment. I'm going to leave this up. I'm just going to turn the camera off a second. I'm going to see to the dog and have a quick smoke, and I will be right back. So, if I don't know, Ava Green turns up and is wondering where I am, just let her know that I've gone for a fag and seen to the dog. I'll be right with you. Bonsoir, mes enfants. L'anniversaire pour moi. Je ne sais pas français. What is the campfire thing, Macienda? I'm unfamiliar with this. I have got a very, very pleasant little buzz going right now. I'm not going to have a second one because I don't want this buzz to become anything less substantial. Australia, box shops. I do have a slight obsession with Australia and its history because it's like one of the weirdest fights. They named Australia, and then there was a major fight over whether or not they should change the name because for the longest time they knew about the Arctic, and it had been considered there must be an enormous southern continent, Australis, because you've got the Aurora Australis of the South Pole. So when we found Australia, they thought, here is the enormous southern continent, and we will name it accordingly. But then they discovered Antarctica, and strictly speaking, Antarctica should be called Australia. But, there were already people, there were already people living there, but the colony had already been established, so they just named it the opposite of the Arctic. Right, here we are. I think it's a place to keep characters 10 minutes. Oh, it's a website. It's not something I'm familiar with. Incidentally, I love the avatar. Maybe it's just the terrible quality of my screen, but it's got a vague. What was it called? It was a video game. Don't Starve. It's got a sort of a Don't Starve look to it. Charlotte, don't you worry about it. It has been extravagantly kind of you to listen to my nonsense. Incidentally, I am deeply flattered that you all were kind enough to listen to some of my book. It was nice to have it exist. Oh, I wonder how Dr. Franklin would have felt about that. Prohibition was hilarious, like in its application, because exactly the kind of people who fought for constitutional temperance were also the exact sort of people who were completely against big government. And you would require major state infrastructure and interference to have something like prohibition work. So in the small towns, in the small rural communities, it was reasonably easy for a local police force to see to it. So the local sheriff would get it done. But as we know, in places like New York, Atlantic City, Chicago, didn't quite work out that way. There's complete control over what is sold in what they call state stores. We're talking about hard liquor, beer, wine, and becoming more integrated. Civilization at last. It's an important moment in an adult's life when you discover what you can and cannot drink. I had absolutely no doubt that you do. Only the other day I was talking about our Halloween collaboration from last year, I think. of the for Monsters. Still one of the most fun collaborations I've done. Chris, it is never not a pleasure, and I'm only sorry I'm not a better human. All the best, Squiffy. Why pay $50 for something schizophrenia can give you for free? This is what I do not understand. It's yeah, for what you could do on your own. It's it's just shiny gadgetry. You know, there's a great college humor sketch about this thing will fix my life. And it reminds me of that sort of thing. I mean, on my MA course, I was the only one there who did the majority of the writing with pen and paper. They completely devoid of idea of writing on anything but these massively expensive programs. I mean, I use Word for second drafts onwards, but I like the tangible sensation of ink on paper. I know, Dal, and every time it has never lessened how much it means to me. I'm yeah, it's floating around out there. Yes, absolutely not a problem. I am available for literally anything. I'm doing some voice work for Katia as well. I'm playing the demon in the audio version of the comic of her short story. Mary Anderson. This all sounds horrifying. But hey, from sea to shining sea. Because it was only the other day that I was talking about the night babies and how what you drew came out significantly creepier than what I imagined. They've got to. I've got to find a home for them. My greatest desire is to be the showrunner of Doctor Who, and I think I would put the night babies in there. It doesn't seem people making decisions like that. No, oh dear. The hours are mandated by the governor. This was even prior to the disease. So additional liquor stores. See, that is a very American thing. The liquor store. Over here, it's the off license. Or in my neck of the woods, the offie. Oh, the offie, gonna get some cans. Yeah, I advise, as a matter of extreme urgency, that you go to Massienda's channel. You'll have to scroll back a little bit because I think this was the middle or the end of November of last year. And there'll be a video, I think it's called Massienda's Menagerie, or certainly the title of the video file I sent over was called that. But it was an absolutely magnificent time. And I cannot, if you do not know it already, recommend Massienda's stuff highly enough. For whatever my my little presence has for it. I've got myself completely scrambled here. Well, that is extremely kind of you. I mean, we are coming to a point where I'm scraping the barrel of possible agents, and because self-publishing is completely beyond me intellectually, I'll probably just start sending the manuscript out to anybody who asks for it. Absolutely. Absolutely. In a goddamn heartbeat. One of the first things I would do if I got the job would be I would lift this ridiculous embargo on non-British writers writing for it. Now, I'm going to go on a slight tangent here because it's my birthday and I fucking can. I really, really hate Doctor Who now. I do not rate Chris Chibnall as a writer. What I really do not like is the fact that if I ever raise a complaint against it, people say, "Oh, you just don't like a woman in the role." That's not the case. I've said there should be a woman playing the Doctor for years. I don't like him as a writer. I think he's a shockingly bad writer. But one of the things I really hate about him is, like, Neil Gaiman was talking to, I can't remember his name. It's Stephen King's son, and he's a massive Doctor Who fan, has been since he was a kid. And Neil Gaiman hooked him up with the commissioning editors at the BBC. And he sent in a pitch for I think he pitched a two-parter for Doctor. And Chibnall said, no, we don't want an American writing for it. This Joe something. My memory is mangled. I do. But yeah, they have this despicable embargo on non-British authors, writers writing for the show, and that would be the first thing to go for me. Self-publishing is costly. Yeah, in Joe Hill. Thank you very much. You may be a temptress, my darling, but you also do know you've got a back door into my memory. I do appreciate it. Yeah, self-publishing. I think I'm turning into. Do we have Kurt Vonnegut readers here? If we have fans of Kurt Vonnegut in the audience, I think I'm slowly turning into his character, Kilgore Trout. Kilgore's great. He by the time of the last book, he's a homeless science fiction writer, and what he does is he sits in the homeless shelter, and he writes his short stories, and then he just goes straight outside and puts them in the bin. He just puts them straight into the garbage immediately. Because the BBC are wankers. They are a protectionist gang of assholes, and the quality is dreadful. It's absolutely abysmal. I mean, okay, this means that they would turn away Taika Waititi to do it. Personally, I'd really want Mark Laidlaw to, if I was running the show in terms of American authors, yeah, I'd want to talk to Mark Laidlaw or Chris Hastings. That would be really good. There are so many, and yeah, Joe Hill. I would absolutely. I'd read his pitch anyway. I wouldn't knock it out of hand. It's disgusting. I really need to get my PhD proposal together. I think it's getting to that time of year. And yet I do not like Stephen King as a writer. And it's one of those dreadful things because I love his imagination. I love his imagery. I love his ideas. But his application, his actual exercising of it, is intolerable to me. It's like, what's the best way of putting it? I don't think he's ever had a bad idea. I don't think he has a bad story in him. But it should not be that fucking long. And I think it was you, Dal, that I was telling when I was reading it. And there's a part in one of the adult sections when two of them are in the back of a cab, and it says that it was the same taxi driver that had driven the other characters from earlier, but he didn't know that. And that character doesn't come back. There's no reason for that to be. He has no discipline of the psychic distance. He cannot decide within the same paragraph whether he is in close person third or omniscient. Now, I'm all for free indirect speech. I have often said, I like my speech like I like my women, free and indirect. But that is taking the piss. That's not free and direct speech. That's poor discipline. And it's just because he does have an exceptional mind for story, image, and character that keeps people going. Technically, and maybe it's just me because I've been through the ringer, I can't look at it. I can't look at writing in a non-technical way anymore. So maybe it's just me having been exposed to it. I mean in a bad way, like in a radiation way. It just completely. I can't become immersed in a Stephen King story. I can regard it and consider it, but I can never be in that world, which is a really bad thing for a horror writer to do. The Shining is good. I did enjoy The Shining. I've not read Doctor Sleep, nor have I seen it. I think that Stephen King is a bit of a. Oh no, hang on. There's a technical term for this. It's a Latin term, I think. Oh yeah, a prissy little bitch about the whole Stanley Kubrick movie thing. Because Kubrick was famous for getting the authors of the books he adapted to work on the screenplay. And he invited Stephen King to work on the screenplay. King turned him down and has spent the last 40 years bitching and moaning about how the film turned out. Now, plenty of reasons why an author may not like the direction that an adaptation of their work took, but very, very few authors are invited by the director to write their own script. He turned down that opportunity. He does not get to complain. Excuse me. It's not because I don't know. Yeah, it's why we said that the devil is in the detail, and it will. I mean, I have been tinkering and streamlining the book I've just read from about 2 years, and I just found a typo. I found a phrasing that was wrong, and this is why it is so important to read your work out loud, or for a small fee, have it read out loud for you. But that's only because I go into. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. That's a name I've not heard for a long time. Oh, it's dreadful. But this is the issue with adaptation as as an idea, as an application rather. It's like, it's amazing to consider how long it's been going on for. I mean, the very first stage production of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley was in the audience. You know, she wrote about it. She said that she thought the actor playing the monster was very good, but didn't think very much of the play as a whole. Thought it was a bit pantomimical. I think the computer. Yeah, I'm a complete technophobe. I just read it out loud myself, and yet keep finding things that shouldn't be there. Do you mean with editing or in writing in general? Vinny, come on, boy. I've got the elephant at the ready. In case he starts playing silly buggers. Yeah, the real problem with reading everything out loud for me is that I shift. Well, as you just saw, there was a second voice in some of those passages, and strictly speaking, it was a female voice, and it's formatted right on the page so that you realize it's an intrusive narrator. Difficult to do reading out loud unless you have a second actor. I sympathize entirely, Massienda. My general plan is I just start with the part that is most clear in my head and then assemble it from its different pieces. I don't think I have ever written anything in the right order. I don't think I've ever started from chapter 1, line 1 and worked forward. I just go with, I don't know, let's call it the gravity approach. Wherever the strongest force is. Yeah, you sort of become used to what you're looking at. Oh, I hope so. I really, really hope it does. I'm in trouble otherwise. There's one of them. I have been sitting on the plot of this new book for weeks now, and I cannot bring myself to write a word of it. The drive simply is not there, and it's an agony because I will be going to bed shortly, and I know that I will turn off the light, I'll roll over, and all of a sudden Dr. Salinger and his nightmare adventure will pour into my head. Actually, while I've got you all here. Oh, I didn't mean our collaboration, Dal, because I know that one will move in a much more greased fashion than my solo project. I would most definitely have said our rather than my. But yes, while I have you all here, before I do put pen to paper, would any of you, anywhere at all, be so inclined as to read a book that was constructed in the wrong order? So you had to start in the middle and go forwards and backwards and have a tactile relationship with the physical object of the book. Because it's sort of a structure I'm working on. It's a novel about time travel. And so all the chapters would be in the chapters would be in chronological order relative to history, but not relative to where the character is. So character begins, chapter 1 is in the middle. And then as it goes forwards or backwards in time, you have to. It's actually ended up having like 3. I'm trying to find a way of using the idea of time travel in the actual execution of the book, up to and including lines going backwards and new ones breaking through. It's something Evan Welsh did in his book Filth. Because one of the narrators of the book is the main character's tapeworm. So there's whole chapters that are just destroyed because there's this other narration that's just bursting through and chewing up a narrative. So I'm very interested in this more, the idea of a narrative structure being more than just how words are placed on a page, and actually using these ideas to structure. But I've ended up with 3 interlocking narrative strands that are all going in different directions time-wise, and there's 2 points where they're all in the right place. One at the very middle and one at the very end. Oh, farewell, Charlotte. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. But yeah, the film was fantastic, but they cut out the tapeworm, mainly because it's one of, as we were saying about, we were talking about adaptation, they couldn't translate it to film. Farewell, Charlotte. Thank you very much. So sorry, what is my solution to what, Dad? I do apologize. I mean, it'll be, and interesting is better than nothing. I have often said that I would rather be a honorable failure than a mediocre success. I would much rather people were reading my work and saying, yeah, it didn't quite work, as opposed to, yep, seen that before. I'd rather fail at something extraordinary than succeed at something bland. Fear the bland. Well, if that's the case, and for readers like yourself, I know how e-readers work. It would be just like a fast wind between the different chapters. Much as I just said to Aphrodite, would have to be in the structure of. This is going to have a technical aspect, but I mean, you can cycle through chapters on an e-reader. Actually, it'd be kind of interesting if you could publish it in its own digital form. Oh my god, I could set it up like a playlist on shuffle. Oh, so you'd never get the same book twice. If so, to read it again, you'd get an entirely different structure. There's something there. I'm fairly certain there's an idea in there, but as you say, okay, there's a I'll take interesting and fail as opposed to dependable and succeed. I swear to God, my head is trying to eat itself with all of these creatures clamoring around inside of it. So I've got that one. I've got my Shakespeare one. I've got my dark fantasy trilogy. And now I've got this one about Noah. That won't leave me alone. Yeah, lots of comments. Yeah, it's we must go against each other. I am actually, and and having offered this here because I've told Dal this, but I am working on And I'll probably get to. It's now Sunday. I'll probably get it filmed the middle of this week. I'm making my own tag video because I've seen I've seen a lot of the tag videos that are going around, and they're all sort of surface level. If you see what I mean, what inspires me, who I am, what I do this, or where I want to go with things, blah blah blah. So I'm working on one that is going into the. It's about your inner landscape. It's about manifesting the inside of here. So if anyone's interested in doing that, let me know and I'll tag you. Because it's my birthday and I can do what the fuck I like. That's only going to be true for a little while longer because I'm going to have to go to bed soon. But what can I say? I'm enjoying myself. I'm ever so slightly buzzed. This is the first time this year, which is nice. I haven't made any particularly massive faux pas, but then again, no one's asked me a staggeringly personal question, so we may yet never know. And if anybody can work out the syntax of what I've just said, I would be supremely grateful. Oh, there we are. I've got plenty of people to tag. That was you know what, ladies? I do believe that's what they call networking. Oh, I really wish I didn't have such reflective glasses. I will do it. I will take the ring to Mordor. Right. I suppose that things are winding down. I have marked the anniversary of my birth, which means I can get on with being a wallowing, antisocial, bipedal mammoth. Is there anything anybody particularly requires of me? Any last-minute burning questions? I am at your service. I'm yours to command. I will certainly do that Aphrodite once I've made it, which may be a while, but once I have. You can if it's not exceptionally long because I'm on my way to my bed. But you absolutely can. And we'll have one for the road. We're open. You okay, boy? There you are. You okay? You don't know I've hit the floor with a thud, mate. Oh, in that case, yes, you absolutely can. Since I actually managed to scrape an audience together, I may start doing these semi-regularly again. And who knows, I may yet revive What Now and Friends before everything went so disastrously wrong. Yes, Vinny is currently lay on the other side of the room. He is completely flopped. He's fast asleep. I swear to God, this dog sleepwalks. I absolutely will. I will do a whip round for anyone who's interested, but I am permanently. I am under orders, indeed, to build my platform and show my war crime of a face a little more in the community. So let it be known that I'm available for collaborations and streams and jolly good social times. Kill me. But yes, I'm available for whatever anybody the hell wants from me. All you've got to do is rub that lamp. So, until such time, I am going to bid you all a very, very fond farewell. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all so much for joining me. It really has meant a lot, because there was a very realistic possibility that the entirety of my birthday was going to be spent in conversation with no one more sophisticated than the walking throw rug that is looking at me at present. So, thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades all. Thank you so much for joining us here at What Now. Good evening.